In a realm veiled by mist and guarded by time, there existed a kingdom not charted on any map, Velmora, the land of hidden stars. Few had ever wandered into its enchanted woods, and fewer still returned with memory intact. There, beneath moonlit canopies and rivers that whispered secrets, lived Illyra, a solitary witch of untold power and timeless beauty. Illyra was no ordinary witch. Her magic bloomed from sorrow, rooted in centuries of exile. Her ancestors had been banished for refusing to join the Black Order, a tyrannical council of dark sorcerers that ruled the known kingdoms. And so, Illyra lived alone in a cottage carved into an ancient tree, casting spells to protect the creatures of the forest, watching the stars, and waiting for what she did not know. But fate, as always, was weaving a new thread. Far across the White Mountains and the Hollow Plains, in a citadel of shadow and silver, lived Kalen, a sorcerer trained in the arcane arts of both light and dark. He was powerful, too powerful, and the Black Order feared him. His soul, however, remained unclaimed. While others pursued domination, Kalen longed for truth. For peace. For something real. One night, he came across a passage in a forbidden tome, a prophecy of a witch whose heart held the power to unravel all magic or to restore it. Her name was not given, but the stars pointed toward Velmora. Driven by visions and an ache he couldn't explain, Kalen defied the order and crossed into the Forbidden Woods. Their first meeting was not romantic. Illyra found him unconscious, his robes soaked in blood from a battle with Velmora's guardian beasts. She could have left him. Should have. But there was something in his face, a familiarity she couldn't place. Against reason, she brought him into her home. When he awoke, startled and weak, he saw her eyes silver, wild, and kind. He spoke her name before she said it. "You're Illyra." She narrowed her eyes. "And you're trespassing." "I'm Kalen. I didn't mean harm. I was looking for something." Most men who say that steal something next. But she didn't throw him out. Over time, they talked. Over tea and soup, through silent nights and shared laughter, walls began to fall. He told her of the order. She told him of her exile. They debated spells, recited ancient languages, and stood beneath falling stars. Days turned into weeks. Magic wove between them like a dance. He showed her how to conjure wind with only breath. She taught him to grow fire from a whisper. Their hearts fell, slowly, then deeply. And then, like all things beautiful, it began to break. The order had been watching. They sent emissaries, then assassins. But Kalen refused to return. Illyra, too, refused to let him go. One night, they stood at the edge of the cliff where the moonlit river met the sky. "If we run," Kalen said, "they'll chase us until the end of time. If we fight," Illyra whispered, "we might die." "I would rather die free beside you," he said, "than live 100 years without your name in my mouth." She touched his face. "Then we make a pact." Illyra took a dagger, silver and ancient. She cut both their palms and joined hands over a bowl of moonwater. The ritual was old, forbidden, a binding. Their powers would become one. Their lives, intertwined. Their fates sealed. In that moment, stars trembled. The war came swiftly. The forest burned. Spells ripped the sky in half. The order summoned beasts of nightmare and chained the winds. Illyra and Kalen fought as one, he wielding force, she weaving nature. But the order's high enchanter, a cruel man named Verith, cast a final curse, a soul severance, meant to tear their bond apart. The curse struck Kalen in the chest. He fell. Illyra screamed, pouring every spell she knew into a storm of light. Trees rose and fought beside her. The river turned to mist and swallowed enemies whole. Verith was turned to stone by her wrath. But Kalen lay dying, the light in his eyes fading. "Illyra," he gasped. "Don't," she cried. "Don't leave me. I'm not gone yet." Using the last of his strength, Kalen reached into his satchel and gave her a crystal, the Star Tear. A relic of old, capable of restoring what was lost, at a terrible price. "You must live. Even if I don't." She shook her head. Not without you. Tears fell onto the crystal. Her love called to the magic within. A burst of light blinded the woods. And then, silence. When the light faded, Kalen's body was gone. Illyra wept for days, wandering the ruins, calling his name. The forest healed, but she did not. Until one evening, a blue flame flickered at her window. It danced like a heartbeat. She followed it into the woods, deeper than ever before. It led her to a grove where the trees shimmered with golden leaves. And there, standing beneath the starlit sky, was Kalen. Reborn. Not as he was, but as something more, half spirit, half man. The star tear had answered her love and returned him, bound to the land of Velmora, where he would never age, never die. She ran to him. Their hands touched. The spark returned. I dreamed of you every day, he said. And I never stopped calling you back, she whispered. They rebuilt the forest, together. They planted flowers where blood once spilled. They raised a sanctuary where exiles, witches, and kind-hearted sorcerers could find refuge. The order fell into ruin, its power broken. Illyra and Kalen became legends, guardians of Velmora, lovers whose magic was born not from ambition, but from compassion. Every year, the sky would rain blue fireflies, the forest's way of remembering their love. And in the grove of golden leaves, if you walk quietly and the wind is kind, you might hear laughter, or see a flash of silver eyes and a cloak of midnight. Some say love is the oldest magic. But Illyra and Kalen proved it's also the strongest. The forest had changed. Not in the way a forest bends with time, but in the hush it held, like a world holding its breath. Where once the trees had sung with rustling leaves and whispered spells to the wind, now they stood quieter, taller, older somehow. As though they, too, had mourned. Illyra had not stepped beyond the grove for months. Her tree home, carved into the body of a living elder pine, was quiet but pulsing with hidden power. Moss crept along the rounded doorframe. Roots curled up like resting cats. And inside, a blue flame now floated, suspended in a glass sphere, anchored to nothing. It followed her like a loyal pet. Or perhaps, a memory. Illyra moved slowly, robes dragging along wooden floors. She touched each book's spine as she passed, grimoire, herbal, celestial chart. She had read them all. Twice. But she wasn't looking for words anymore. She was listening. Waiting. Kalen had returned, yes. But not fully. He visited her in the grove, his form half light, half shadow, like mist caught in sunlight. He could hold her hand, but not for long. He could speak, but sometimes his voice flickered, as if carried from another world. The star tear had bound him to Velmora, but not to her. Not truly. That was the price she hadn't foreseen. Come back to me, she whispered to the flame. It pulsed, dimmed, then brightened. Outside, the wind stirred, carrying the scent of river mint and night flowers. Illyra stepped into the open air, eyes turned to the moon above. It was full, heavy, colored like bone. Tonight was the anniversary of the binding. And deep in the forest, something was awakening. Far away, across a dried ravine where no flowers bloomed and no light touched, Vareth stirred. His stone body cracked. He had been turned by Illyra's rage, petrified mid-curse, eyes wide, mouth frozen in defiance. But curses, like roots, grow slow and deep. And something within him still burned. A whisper curled through the darkness. The bond was broken, but the boy was not severed. Flesh returned to his fingertips. His eyes moved. He exhaled. Vareth stood. And where he walked, the ground died. In the sanctuary Illyra and Kalen had built, hidden within the woods, protected by spells and nature alike, the refugees were stirring. Witches, scholars, cursed warriors, all who had once been hunted now found shelter here. They called it Lori, meaning last hope in the tongue of the ancient druids. Children with glowing eyes chased fireflies. Healers grew herbs by moonlight. Scribes enchanted books that sang themselves aloud. And yet, even here, the wind carried unease. Kalen appeared beneath the watch tree, his form more spirit than man. He placed his palm against the bark, and it opened to him, revealing a glowing root heart. Illyra approached. "You're flickering more than usual," she said softly. He turned. His smile was tired. "The bond is thinning." "No," she stepped closer. "We'll fix it. I'll find another relic, another ritual." Kalen reached out. His fingers passed through hers like smoke. "Illyra, it's okay." "It's not." He paused, then said, "There's something coming." She stiffened. "The order?" "No. Worse." His eyes glowed briefly gold. "The one who cursed me, he's moving." Illyra's heart chilled. "Vareth." Kalen nodded. "We have to warn Lori." "No," Kalen said. "You have to protect it. I can't leave this realm. But he can enter it now." Illyra looked toward the heart of the forest, the place where stars used to fall, where spells were born from song. Then she looked back at Kalen, her love wrapped in light. "I'm not losing you again," she said. He smiled sadly. "Then you must fight to keep me." The blue flame rose between them. It pulsed. And far away, beneath the dead soil where Vareth walked, a second flame flickered to life, red, violent, hungry. The balance was shifting. The sun never truly rose in the eastern woods. There, the light arrived like a whisper, cautious and gray. Mist draped itself across the trees like mourning cloth. It was in this shadowed half of Velmora that Vareth moved. He had not yet regained his full form, but each step returned something. A breath. A memory. A fragment of his old power. The forest resisted him. Branches tried to tangle his path. Roots pulled at his boots. Animals watched and ran. But none could stop him. He had once stood among the high 13 sorcerers who could bend time and thought. Now, vengeance was his only spell. He paused beneath a blackened willow, sensing it. A pulse of ancient power. "Illyra," he muttered. "You've grown." He opened his palm. A flame flickered there, deep red and snarling. He whispered to it in a forgotten tongue, and the flame began to twist, shaping itself into a raven of fire. "Fly," he commanded. It soared into the sky, a burning omen. Back in Lori, the air had changed. Illyra stood atop the watchtower, wind snapping at her robes. Around her, sentries moved, some on foot, others riding low-hovering platforms shaped from bark and spelllight. They nodded respectfully as she passed. She was not just their protector. She was their myth. She turned to Yold, a former enchanter of the Eastern Isles and now her second in command. "Elven runes on all boundaries. Reinforce them with moonwater and iron," Illyra said. Yold bowed slightly. "You believe he's coming?" "He's already here. I can feel him in the trees." Below them, Kalen's spirit form drifted near a group of children playing with glowing pebbles. His laugh, though faint, still made Illyra's chest ache. Later, in the heart chamber of the watch tree, she sat cross-legged before the star tier. It pulsed faintly, duller than before. She whispered a chant, calling upon the binding magic. Her voice shook. The connection to Kalen was weakening, and the forest knew it. Suddenly, the flames in the room flickered. Yold burst in. "My lady," a sign from the northern sky. They ran outside. Above them, the horizon glowed crimson. A single fire raven soared overhead, trailing ash and shadow. All of Lori looked up. Kalen appeared beside her, barely stable. "It's begun," he said. "Vareth is calling the old magic. The kind that breaks stars." Illyra stared at the horizon. "Then we go north. Tonight." "You'll need allies," Yold warned. Illyra nodded. "Send word to the Valley of Mist. Call the Seers. And the Thornborn." Kalen touched her shoulder. His fingers trembled with effort. "If I fade completely." "You won't. Illyra. I bound you once. I'll do it again." Even if I have to pull you back from the veil. He smiled. The blue flame hovered between them. It flared brightly for a moment, defiant. And far away, beneath a blood-colored moon, Vareth watched through the eyes of his fire raven. So, the witch remembers how to fight, he said softly. He turned. Behind him, dozens of shadowed figures emerged from the woods, creatures twisted by magic, loyal to his curse. The final game begins. The march began before dawn. Illyra led the vanguard out of Lori, her cloak billowing behind her like a banner of midnight. Behind her, a caravan of warriors, mystics, and beast-bound scouts filed in silence through the forest trails. Even the birds seemed to hush in reverence or fear. Kalen floated beside her, his form flickering more than ever. He wasn't speaking much now, but his eyes, gold and ghostly, remained fixed on the path ahead. They crossed silver streams and thorn-laced hollows, passed beneath willow canopies that bent down as though to bless their passing. The forest, ever watchful, whispered around them in rustling leaves. By noon, they reached the edge of Velmora's inner ring, ancient territory ruled not by mortals, but by time itself. There, standing in a glade lit by shafts of amber light, waited a woman draped in robes of shifting fog. Yold stepped forward. Lady Severa. The seer smiled faintly. Her eyes were veiled, but she saw more than most with sight. I have seen your journey in the smoke, she said. But not its end. Illyra nodded. That's why we came. Severa's expression darkened. The storm you walk toward is not of wind or fire. It is fate, unweaving itself. Kalen's voice rang out, distant but clear. Can he be stopped? Severa turned her veiled gaze on him. You were meant to burn. And yet here you drift. She pulled you back. That defiance has consequences. Illyra stepped closer. What must we do? Severa raised one trembling hand and pointed west. Beyond the ridge of Hollowbones. The Thornborn will meet you there. But beware, Vareth has already reached the Echo Spire. He seeks the Mirror of Roots. If he breaks it, your bond, your magic, will shatter forever. Gasps rippled through the ranks behind her. Illyra clenched her fists. Then we reached the spire before him. Severa bowed her head. May the forest remember your name. 3 days later, they arrived at the ridge of Hollowbones. The Thornborn were already waiting, warriors clad in living bark and bone, hair woven with serpents and petals. Their leader, a giant named Rorik, approached Illyra. You come late, witch. And you still breathe, forest brute. So I suppose miracles are real. Rorik grinned. Good. I hate politeness. They clasped wrists in mutual respect. Kalen watched silently, fading in and out, his glow dimmer by the hour. That night, beneath the tangled canopy, Illyra knelt before a shallow pool. She whispered to the moonlight. Give him back to me, she said. Whole. Real. Mine. A breeze stirred. And in the reflection of the water, Kalen appeared, not ghostly, but as he once was. Whole. Solid. Smiling. Illyra gasped. He reached for her. But the surface of the water shattered. A shriek echoed through the trees. The sky turned red. Vareth had found the mirror. And he had begun to break it. They ran. Through blackened fields, over ridges burning with ancient runes, Illyra and her allies sprinted toward the rising spiral of crystal and stone, the Echo Spire, a tower as old as Velmora itself. It pierced the clouds like a fong of the gods. At its heart rested the Mirror of Roots, a relic so bound to the forest's soul that to shatter it would break the weave of every spellcast within Velmora, including the bond between Illyra and Kalen. The Thornborn led the charge, Rorik swinging his axe with earth-shaking fury. Yold conjured shields of light to block falling curses. Kalen, flickering beside Illyra, used what little power remained to guide her, his voice in her mind like a warm echo. Faster, Illyra, he urged. The mirror is splintering. Lightning arced across the sky. Inside the spire, Vareth stood in a chamber of stone and stars, one hand pressed against the mirror.
Cracks bled golden light beneath his palm. "Just a little more," he whispered. "Just one more break, and she will forget him. He will fade. And I will rise again." The doors burst open. Illyra entered alone, her magic burning blue around her like a living flame. "Step away, Vareth," she commanded. The sorcerer turned, eyes black with void magic. "You are too late, witch." The mirror cracked again. Kaelin screamed in her mind, then fell silent. Illyra's heart nearly broke. But she did not waver. She lifted her hands, chanting in the old tongue an incantation of forest binding, the same spell she had once used to call Kaelin back from death. Vines erupted from the ground. The wind howled with her name. Vareth laughed, raising a blade of pure shadow. "You think love will stop me?" "I know it will," she said. Their spells collided. Light and shadow. Love and vengeance. The chamber shook with the force of their battle. Crystals shattered. The sky cracked open. Outside, Lori's forces and Vareth's beasts clashed in chaos. Fire met water. Steel met bark. Magic danced wildly across the battlefield. Inside, Illyra began to falter. Vareth's curse was too deep, his power drawn from realms forbidden. But then, a voice in her mind. "Illyra! I remember. You kept me alive. Let me return the favor." Kaelin's spirit surged through her body like wildfire. Their bond reignited. Her magic blazed tenfold. With a cry of pure love and fury, Illyra cast the binding flame, an ancient rite no witch had dared summon in centuries. It wrapped around Vareth like a sunborn serpent, binding him not just in body, but in time. He screamed as his form shattered, turning into dust and light, which the mirror swallowed whole. The cracks in the mirror sealed. The forest exhaled. And Kaelin collapsed beside her, no longer spirit. Whole. Flesh. Alive. Illyra caught him in her arms. "You came back to me," she whispered. "I never left," he murmured, breathless. They kissed beneath the glow of the mirror, their magic entwined forevermore. Outside, the storm faded. The sky cleared. And love, the oldest magic, remained victorious. Days passed. Then weeks. The war was over, but the land still bore its wounds. Charred trees, broken altars, spells left half-finished in the wind. Velmora, the hidden heart of magic, slept like a wounded giant. But where others saw ruin, Illyra saw a beginning. Together with Kaelin, flesh and spirit now united, they began the slow rebuilding of Lori in the sacred forest beyond. The Thornborn planted groves from the seeds in their hair. The seers sang over rivers to heal the poisoned waters. Children of the forest learned how to write their first spells in the bark of silver trees. And in the heart of it all stood the Echo Spire, its mirror hole, its power stable. Illyra placed protective wards around it, not to keep it hidden, but to remind the land, some things, once broken, can be made stronger. Kaelin helped forge a school beneath the moon's roots, where witches and sorcerers alike came to learn harmony, not dominance. Magic rooted in care. In purpose. One dusk, as twilight kissed the sky with lilac fire, Illyra and Kaelin stood atop the watch tree once more. "I never imagined we'd see this," Kaelin said. Illyra leaned into him. "That makes two of us." He looked at her, searching. "Do you still fear I'll fade again?" She was silent for a breath. Then she said, "No. Because I know now, we're part of the same magic." He took her hand. They descended into the Grove of Binding, where the first ritual had been cast. This time, no dagger was needed. No sacrifice. Just a vow. Illyra whispered hers, "Wherever the forest grows, I'll find you." Kaelin followed, "Wherever time bends, I'll wait." The ground shimmered beneath them. Flowers bloomed in their footsteps. The stars danced closer, as if listening. And the binding flame returned, not in violence, but in grace. It surrounded them, lifted them, sealed them. Not just as lovers, but as guardians of Velmora.
They kissed under the tree where stars had once fallen, and every leaf on every branch shimmered gold.
Peace had returned. But more importantly, so had love.
A year had passed since the last spell of war had been cast, and Velmora no longer whispered in sorrow, it sang.
With each new moon, the forest grew brighter.
Its trees stretched taller.
The river laughed again.
And in the center of it all, beneath the sacred stars, Elira and Kaelin made a home. They did not build a palace. They lived within a tree that chose them, a shimmering silver elderwood, its trunk etched with ancient runes and vines that bloomed only at dusk. The creatures of the forest came freely.
Spirits wandered peacefully. Magic curled in the air like incense.
Elira awoke each morning to Kaelin humming soft melodies as he stirred tea leaves with his magic. He still glowed faintly, like a man who had been touched by stars, but he was solid now. Real. Hers. Their days were filled with laughter, healing, and building. A sanctuary for those cast aside. A school for those who sought to wield magic with purpose. At night, they lay beneath an open ceiling, the stars visible through the leaves. Elira would trace constellations along Kaelin's shoulder, telling stories older than the forest itself.
And Kaelin, in return, would whisper poetry into her hair.
You saved me, he said one evening.
I found you, she replied. No.
You loved me when I was fading. You believed. She turned to him.
I always will. On the night of the twin moons, Velmora held a celebration.
Lights floated through the forest.
Songs danced on the wind.
Creatures, human and magical alike, gathered in the grove of binding. It was here that Kaelin, under the boughs of golden-leaved trees, knelt before Elira. From his palm, he summoned a ring of woven light, no metal, no gem, just spell and soul. Elira, we have bound each other by blood, by spell, by fire, but now I ask you to bind with me in love.
Will you marry me not as a sorcerer or witch, but simply as Kaelin?
Tears shimmered in her eyes.
Yes, she said. 1,000 times, yes.
The grove erupted in cheers.
The trees bloomed in response.
And the stars, they fell again, just like the night they first met. Their wedding was simple, sacred, and silent, attended by the forest, by wind, by those who loved them. They said no vows.
They only held hands.
And in that touch was everything. Time passed, but their love did not fade.
Legends were born from their union.
Some said they became stars themselves. Others believed they still walk the woods of Velmora, hand in hand, watching over those who believe that love is the oldest and strongest magic.